Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of SAP Security. In this session we will be discussing about interface authorization, example RFC authorization. How to create an authorization or role for RFC. If you see in a well managed system, this RFC users and RFC interface plays a very important role. So you will have a lot of interfaces coming from one system to another system. Then you need to define the authorization concept so well RFC users are not misused. Meaning, when you create an interface, basically when you create an interface, the interface will be coming from an external system or you are going to an external system. So when it's coming from an external system, you are not sure who is using the system from the other side. So you have to be very particular and say this is what the business scenario, and specific to the business scenario you have to define the roles and authorizations. So let's see how do we create an authorization concept for an interface, because it's not a straightforward method. You need to understand what is the other party is doing, and you need to understand what are they trying to execute in our system or extract data from our system. But it's quite difficult to go through the entire process and define an authorization concept. Okay, user is going to run transaction code called VA01, we can go to SU24 and take all the authorization object and assign to the role. No, it's not possible like that, because they will be using something called function module. Inside this function module, what all these developers calls, we don't know, and we do not have that much expertise to go into the function module and see what they are calling. And even you don't need to. The thing is, you already have enough sufficient tools which can help you to confirm what is authorization they require. In this session we are going to understand first of all what is RFC, how this interface works, and what are all the tools we can use to define this RFC authorization concept or interface authorization concept. RFC means remote function call, which we have already seen. RFC can be from an SAP system to another SAP system, or SAP system to a non-SAP system. Non-SAP system from Microsoft, some ERP you can wanted to connect to an SAP system, you can still connect using RFC remote function calls. We have two types of RFC. One is trusted RFC, another one is normal RFC, it's non-trusted. Okay, so in the trusted RFC means you already trust the system each other. In trusted also you have something called trusting and trusted. For our understanding we make it very simple: trusted RFC and non-trusted RFC. Trusted RFC means one SAP system to another SAP system, you make a handshake already within the system itself. That means if you are a user in system A, if the system A and B is a trusted system, using the user A you can log into B. That is trusted, because you already trust the system. Whoever the user is here, then it's also here, then they have a trusted relationship. Most of the cases this trusted RFC will be within your network or within your landscape, that you will have trusted RFCs. In the non-trusted RFC, that you need to have a user ID and password to log in to the system. You need to have a separate user ID and password to log into the system. That is non-trusted RFC. Now let's come to RFC authorization. So we have three main authorization objects for RFCs. First one is S_ICF, and second one is S_RFC call, and third one is S_RFC. This S_ICF, this is used within the system, the source system, to trigger the RFC call. And for example, to the trusted RFC they use S_RFC ACL RFC call. So this is an authorization object you need in the target system for a trusted system. Then you can call the trusted system and connect it between the system. Non-trusted system, yes underscore RFC, this is the main object which is used for RFC communication. If you go through any audit procedures or compliance requirements, yes underscore RFC is going to be one of the key authorization object you are going to look into. This has mainly three fields. If you simply put star star star, the source system can extract any kind of data from the target. So it's very important that we need to understand this concept and how to restrict as much as possible. Okay, let's get into the authorization object. The first authorization object is F underscore RFC ACL. In this object, the first field is RFC underscore sysid. This is the ID of calling system or the domain of the satellite system, that let's say system ID of the calling system, that you need to specify it in this field. Then second one is RFC client, that you need to specify which client you are calling. Then RFC user, ID of the calling user. You can restrict by using this one, you can restrict only the specific user supposed to call, or if you put star, then all the user can call. RFC underscore equivalent user, this is used if the user is using another name to call. This is for the equivalent user. Then RFC underscore T code, this is a transaction code which you are going to call. RFC underscore info, this is an additional information for calling system which is actually not active. Then activity, what you can do, generally it's 16, you can execute and function module. Then let's come to the important one, S underscore RFC. Here we have three different fields. RFC underscore type, this is a type of RFC object you wanted to protect, that means you wanted to allow. This field can take the value FUGR for function group. So this will define your calling and function group. The second one is RFC underscore name, the name of the RFC object you are going to protect. I mean, this field currently contains the name of the function group. Here we define this is going to be a function group, the type of call is going to be a function group, FUGR. Then here we will define the name of the function group which you are going to call. Then the activity generally going to be 16, that means execute. So how this RFC is going to work, for example, from here you will, using the user ID and password or this authorization, you will log into this user and you will execute some function module. Yeah, function module is same like a program, but you can call this function module from a different system or from a different program. So you will call this RFC, execute this function module in the local system. So based on the whatever we have execute and the input criteria, then you have some data which will be going back to the source system. That is called function module. So this is the function module name. You will define the function module here. So that is the main two authorization object. The main object which we are going to see in our exercise is S underscore RFC. This is the main object which we generally use for RFC authorization concept, because S underscore RFC call, anyway this is a trusted system, you already trust the system. That means you already establish a connected system which is already trusted. So this does not comes in a risky system. So when this object, we believe this is not going to be quite risky, but S underscore RFC is going to be quite risky, because you are going to give it to a non-trusted system where an external party is going to connect to a system. Let's see how we can develop an RFC authorization. Okay, in our scenario, what we are going to do, we are going to create an RFC interface from client 001 to client 800 in our system. Okay, let's get into the system and create an authorization concept to call some function module from client 001 to client 800. So in our scenario, client 001 is calling client 800. So you need a user in client 800. You need a user called some RFC user. Let's create a user in client 800. So RFC user, let me put it like this, security RFC user. This is going to be our username in client 800. We create security training RFC user. I will have a password here. My user type is going to be communication user. Now we need to assign some role. You can have two approach. You can first assign a role which has all the authorization, or assign a profile which has all authorization. Then once the connection is enabled, then you go back and find out what is the actual object which is required by tracing the user, or by finding out what is the function module going to be executed. That is one approach. Second approach is don't assign anything and start assigning whenever it's required. In our case, what are we trying to do? We are trying to do an RFC connection to call some table 800 from 001. That's what we are trying to do. So in my case, what I will do is, I don't want to get into authorization problem. After that, I don't know what we are going to do. So first what I will do is, let me assign SAP all. Okay, I assign SAP all to this user. So at the moment in the development system, this particular user have SAP all. This is a shortcut method to do this. Okay, let me log into the client 001. Okay, now I am going to create an RFC connection first. This will be done anyway by basis consultant. For you to understand how does the RFC works, it is very important. If you understand the whole concept, then it can easily develop this authorization concept, and you can easily diagnose the issue in RFCs. Go to SM59 and say create. So I am going to create a RFC called security RFC for training. Then you need to select an RFC connection type. We select 3, which is an ABAP RFC. Then we say this description, security training demo. Then we need to define the host name, target host. I'll put my IP address 192.168.1.52. Then system name number is 00. Okay, we have load balance. No, if you have load balance, and you can configure load balance and stuff like this. Then let's go to client. Client is going to be 800, and user is, this is our user. Password is, okay, I saved the password. If it is a, if you select current user, then it's going to use the user which is logged into this specific client. So I am going to use this user. Say save. Now it's saved. Now I test the connection. It's working. Now I am going to execute some function module using this RFC destination. So this is my RFC destination. To execute a function module, you go to the transaction SE37. Here you define the function module name. The function module which we are going to use is RFC read table. This is the function module. What this function module will do, that it will read a specific table, same like our XA16. This is a function module, that is a transaction code. So if I execute, so I don't put any RFC now, let me read some table. The table which we use, like let's say agr underscore define is our table. Let's read this. So this table have almost 3495 entries. So we read all this table. If you click here, then you can see the table. Now if you see this is the table content is coming from client 001. This is the role and all the related details coming from this specific table. Now what we have seen, this is in your local client 001. As we've seen in the entries, the first entry was client 001. Now we need to call the same table in a remote system. So let's use this RFC destination. This is our RFC destination which we already configured. So it has to call from client 800. Let's execute. Now we got some more entries, 4317 entries in this table. Let's see what is inside this table. Now if you see the content of this table, this is 800, client 800, and this is the roles which we have created. So right now we call this table from this RFC destination because we have SAPOL. Let's see what happens if you remove this SAPOL. Now I am in client 800. Let's go to this user, go to the profile. I'm going to remove this SAPOL. Save this user. Go back, and I will execute this again. It say not authorized. So you do not have authorization to call this function module in this target system. So it says you are not authorized. Now I am in client 001. Now let's go back. Let's go to the profile and let's put back the profile, because we have to develop an role for this user which has only that specific authorization which is required for this function module. Actually, what we can do, we have the tool called tracing the user. Okay, so /n st01, I am going to trace this RFC user. Authorization check, I am going to filter it, filter on. This is the user which I am going to trace. I am going to filter it and trace on. Now I will go back. Let me execute this function module again. Now I got the data whatever I want. Now I go back to the client 800, switch off the trace. Let's analyze. This is the user. I need to adjust the date. Here what you can see, the authorization required for reading a table s_tabu dis activity 03 and disciples SS. This is the only authorization which I got here. I did not get S underscore RFC. So you need to also have actually S underscore RFC. We did not have it here because maybe we did not trace this properly. Let's trace it again. Shit. Trace on. I'll go back. Start from beginning. This one. AGR underscore define and execute again. Now let me go back. Now let me go back to the tracing. So let me switch off the trace and go to analyze. So I have to change the user. I have to change, I have to change the date because of the time zone problem. Okay, now I execute. Okay, now I get it right. I got our authorization object which is required to call the function module, which is S underscore RFC. The activity which we are reading is we are reading a table. That particular activity required this authorization object. So the authorization object which I required is S underscore RFC, and this is the field and the field values, and this is the authorization object to read a table. So I got these two. Then what I will do, I will create a role. PFCG. Here I will say Z underscore BC underscore RFC role for this RFC. Some name. A description RFC user for table reading. Go here, say yes. Now do not want template, I can manually assign S underscore RFC. Now we need to assign the objects. We need S underscore RFC type is FUGR. This is only function group. So RFC type, here RFC type, if you click, if you need function group, and activity which you are going to do is activity 16, that is execute a function group. Here only 16, and the name of RFC, the name of the RFC underscore name SDTX. SDTX. Okay, now this is the authorization object to run that specific function module. So after running the function module, we are going to call a table. Okay, for that we need additional authorization, which is S underscore TABU display. So let me add that S underscore TABU dis. This is an authorization object. So what do they want to do here? They need only activity 03. They are going to only display. So give only display, and the authorization group is called disciples, which is SS. SS is an authorization group for that table. We will come to this object in detail, what is authorization group for this table later. I create profile and generate this profile. Now I have a role. Now what I can do, I can remove the sapall and assign this role. We go to the RFC user, go to profile, remove the SAPOL, simply go and assign this role. Now if I go back to the client 1001, now I am in client 001. Let me try to execute this again. Now it's working. Now if you see, it's working perfectly. Now we added two authorization object. One is s underscore RFC, that is to connect the RFC. The second one is the authorization to access this table. Let's try to access a different table. Okay, I'm going to access a different table. Actually it has a different authorization group, PA008. This is coming from our HR. Let me execute this. It says not authorized. You are not authorized to read this table. Now is it the problem of s underscore RFC? Maybe not. Now it may be a problem of the second object s underscore tabu dis, that you have authorization to read only that agr underscore define, not the PA008. If you go back and trace this activity, then you will know what is happening here. Let's go back to our client. Let me switch on the trace again. Let me put the RFC destination and PA0008 and execute. Now we got an authorization error. Let's go back to our client 800 and trace off, analyze, now if you see this s underscore RFC, which is already passed, that means function code 0, we have this authorization, which is not a problem. Then s underscore tabu underscore dis, which is 4, which is 03, and the disciples, that is authorization group, is PA, because it's coming from HRPA. So if you assign this one, then they can read this table, otherwise they cannot read this table. Now we are narrowed down to the specific authorization group, or now we are allowing this user what is the exact activity of this user only. So we will not allow more than this. That is the actual usage of this RFC user. The second method is that instead of assigning SAP all, you need to come to a conclusion what this function module is going to use. In our case, let's say this function module is going to read a table. So we need to know, okay, to read a table, what are all the authorization object I need, because this function module is not going to call a transaction code. So it's going to call the object directly. So to read the table, what is the authorization object I need? S underscore tabu underscore dis. On that I need this is the authorization object, and this is the group. Then from specific table you can get this group, then you can add it there. And but function RFC s underscore RFC, you are still not sure, then only assign only that object, put star, then try to trace it. Still you need to trace it if you like to find out exactly what is the authorization object which is required under s underscore RFC. Otherwise we need to really study each objects and its value. Actually it is not necessary to do that. You can simply trace and find out what is been actually called. So this is the way you can create a role for an RFC user and diagnose an authorization error in an RFC user. With this, we are coming to the end of the session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.